Ethan Voss hit the marble floor hard
Thought you
enough
could
to knock
snoop
the air
around,
from
did
his
you?
lungs.
Thought
His
you'd
shoulder
find something
screamed in
interesting?
protest as Mr. Crane's boot pressed between his shoulder blades, grinding him
Thought
into
you
the
could
cold
snoop
stone.
around, did you?
Thought you could snoop
Thought
around,
you'd
did you?
find something interesting?
Crane's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Thought you'd find something interesting? Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His fingers scraped uselessly against the polished marble as he tried to push himself up. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Crane's phone buzz. The pressure on his back lessened slightly as the security chief stepped away. "What is it?" Crane snapped into the phone. A pause. "No, I'm dealing with the situation now." Ethan gasped, filling his lungs with precious air. He stayed still, face pressed to the floor, listening. "The twin isn't dead," Crane said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "He's here. Damien Voss can never find out." Ethan's blood turned to ice. "Twin? His twin?" "I said I'm handling it," Crane hissed. "Miranda wants this buried, and it will stay buried." The call ended. Crane's footsteps approached again, slow and deliberate. Ethan knew he had seconds. As the boot came toward his ribs, he rolled, grabbed Crane's ankle, and yanked. The older man stumbled, surprised. Ethan scrambled to his feet and ran. Behind him, Crane's shout echoed through the corridor. "Stop him!" Ethan's heart hammered as he sprinted through the servant passages of Hawthorne Estate. His home. The place where he'd lived for 19 years as little more than a ghost, invisible to his father, tormented by his stepmother Miranda, and now hunted by her attack dog. He skidded around a corner, his mind racing faster than his feet. A twin. He had a twin brother, and everyone had lied to him.
The key card. Crane's key card had fallen during the scuffle. Ethan's fingers found it in his pocket, the plastic still warm. He veered toward the old servant wing, toward Sophie's quarters. If anyone would help him, it would be her. He pounded on her door. "Sophie, Sophie, please." The door cracked open. Sophie's weathered face appeared, eyes wide with concern. "Ethan? What? Please." He pushed inside, closing the door behind him. His hands were shaking. "I need help." Sophie guided him to a chair, her movements quick and practiced. She was in her 60s, had worked at the estate since before Ethan was born, and was the closest thing to a mother he'd ever known. She locked the door and turned to him. "What happened?" "Crane," Ethan managed. "He attacked me, and Sophie, I heard him on the phone. He said—" He stopped, unsure if speaking the words would make them real. "He said I have a twin brother, that he's alive. Here." Sophie's face went pale. She sank into the chair across from him. "Oh, Ethan. You knew?" The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. "You knew and you never told me?" "I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "Miranda made us all sign agreements. Anyone who spoke would be destroyed, fired, blacklisted, criminal charges if we could be tied to anything. I've wanted to tell you for years, but—" A knock at the door made them both freeze. A soft feminine voice called out, "Sophie, it's Livia. I brought the linens you asked for." Sophie hesitated, then opened the door. A young woman stepped inside, her arms full of white sheets. Livia Hale had started working at the estate 2 weeks ago, supposedly as a kitchen assistant. But Ethan had noticed things, the way she moved with too much confidence, the way her eyes tracked everything, the way she seemed to know the estate layout better than someone new should.
Livia's gaze landed on Ethan, taking in his disheveled appearance and labored breathing. She set down the linens calmly. "What happened?" "Nothing," Ethan said quickly. "Crane happened," Sophie corrected. "He knows." Livia locked the door and moved to the window, checking the grounds below. "How much time do we have?" "We?" Ethan stood. "Who are you really?" She turned to face him, and for the first time, her mask slipped. Concern flickered in her dark eyes. "Someone who's trying to help you. But we need to move fast. Crane's probably already calling in Grayson and Holt." "His enforcers," Sophie whispered. "I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me the truth." Ethan's voice rose. I have a twin brother. Where is he? Why did everyone lie? Livia pulled a first aid kit from Sophie's cabinet. Sit down. Let me patch you up, and I'll tell you what I know. Ethan sat. His shoulder throbbed where he'd hit the floor. As Livia cleaned a cut on his cheek with surprising gentleness, she spoke. When you and your brother were born, your mother died in childbirth. Your father, Damien, was devastated. He threw himself into his work. A door slammed somewhere in the house. All three of them froze. Sophie moved to the window, peering through the curtains. Just the wind, she whispered, but her hands shook. Livia continued, her voice lower now. That's when Miranda saw her opportunity. She convinced Damien that raising twins alone would be impossible. Boarding school, nannies, anything to keep you both out of sight. But that wasn't enough for her, Sophie added, still watching the window. She wanted to erase one of you completely. Livia applied antiseptic and Ethan winced. Which one? Ethan asked. Footsteps passed in the hallway outside. Heavy, deliberate. Everyone went silent. The footsteps paused at Sophie's door. Ethan's hand moved to the chair beside him, ready to use it as a weapon. Livia positioned herself near the door, that wrench still in her grip. The footsteps continued past, fading. Sophie exhaled shakily. That was Grayson. He's making rounds. We don't have much time, Livia said, working faster on Ethan's wounds. Miranda declared one twin died shortly after birth. She falsified records, paid off hospital staff. Then she hid him somewhere in this estate. For 19 years? Ethan couldn't comprehend it. His leg bounced nervously. That's impossible. Not if you have Crane, Sophie said, moving away from the window to check the door lock again. Her anxiety was contagious. He's been with Miranda from the beginning. He's not just security, he's her accomplice in everything. A phone buzzed. Ethan nearly jumped out of his chair. It was Livia's phone. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. It's a group text to all staff. Miranda's calling an emergency meeting in 20 minutes. All personnel required. That's unusual, Sophie said. That's a head count, Livia corrected. She looked at Ethan. She's going to notice you're not there, and when she realizes you're missing, another sound, this time from above. Creaking floorboards, someone moving in the attic directly overhead. Does anyone live up there? Ethan whispered. Sophie shook her head slowly. That wing's been sealed for years. The three of them stared at the ceiling as the footsteps moved slowly, deliberately, directly above Sophie's room. Then they stopped. Right over their heads. Silence. We need to leave, Livia said. Now. Ethan looked down at Crane's keycard in his hand. This opens secure areas. If my brother is here, maybe... Don't. Livia's hand closed over his, urgent. Don't let Crane catch you again. He doesn't just follow orders. He enjoys them. The footsteps above started again, moving toward what must be the stairs. But Ethan was already standing. I have to know. I have to find him. Sophie shook her head. Ethan, please. This is too dangerous. This is my brother, Ethan said. Someone who's been locked away his entire life. I can't just do nothing. The footsteps were descending now, closer. Livia studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Then I'm coming with you. Why? Ethan demanded. Why do you care? She met his eyes and something passed between them, something electric and terrifying and real. Because nobody deserves what Miranda's done to your family. The footsteps stopped, right outside Sophie's door. A shadow appeared in the crack beneath the door. All three of them held their breath. Then a radio crackled. Grayson, report to the main gate. We have a delivery. Copy that, a voice responded. Grayson's voice, right outside the door. The shadow moved away. Footsteps receded down the hall. Sophie sagged against the wall. You need to go. Use the servant passages. And for God's sake, be careful. They left Sophie's quarters through the servant passages, Ethan leading the way through corridors he'd navigated his entire life. Behind them, they could hear the estate coming alive, staff being summoned for Miranda's emergency meeting, doors opening and closing, voices echoing. She's assembling everyone, Livia whispered. When you don't show up, I know, Ethan said, moving faster. They reached the East Wing stairwell when Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know where you are. He showed it to Livia. Her face went pale. Crane, he must have tracking on his keycard. Can he track us right now? I don't know, maybe. We need to move faster. They climbed the stairs, their footsteps echoing despite their efforts to stay quiet. At the second-floor landing, Ethan heard voices below, Crane's voice giving orders. Check the servant wing. Then the east wing. He can't have gone far. Ethan and Livia pressed themselves against the wall as flashlight beams swept the stairwell below them. The beams moved closer, climbing. Livia grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him through a doorway into the east wing proper. This section had been sealed off years ago under the guise of structural concerns. Plywood covered most doorways. Warning signs about instability hung on the walls. The keycard beeped green at the main door. They slipped inside. The air was thick with dust. What little light filtered through boarded windows created strange, angular shadows. Ethan pulled out his phone for additional light, but Livia stopped him. No light. They'll see it through the cracks. They moved through the darkness by feel, hands trailing along walls. Behind them, the door they'd just come through rattled, someone testing it. It's locked, Holt's voice said. Think he went this way? Use your master key, Crane ordered. Ethan and Livia moved faster, blind in the darkness. Ethan's shin connected with something, furniture. He bit back a curse. Behind them, the door beeped and opened. Spread out, Crane said. He's in here somewhere. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, sweeping the space. Ethan and Livia ducked behind a covered sofa. The beams passed over them, moved on, then returned, pausing on the disturbed dust where they'd walked. Fresh tracks, Grayson said. The beams started following their trail. Ethan spotted stairs ahead, leading up to the attic level. He tapped Livia's arm and pointed. She nodded. They waited until the flashlight beams turned away, then sprinted for the stairs. A shout behind them. There! They ran up, taking stairs two at a time. Behind them, heavy footsteps pounded in pursuit. The attic door was unlocked. Strange, Ethan thought, but no time to wonder why. They burst through. The attic was vast, filled with covered furniture and stacked boxes. Unlike the floor below, this space had some light. Gaps in the boarded windows let in pale moonlight. Ethan could see his breath in the cold air. Hide, Livia hissed, pulling him behind a large wardrobe. They crouched as Crane, Grayson, and Holt entered the attic. The three men spread out, flashlights sweeping methodically. I know you're up here, boy, Crane called out. His voice was calm, almost friendly. This is getting tiresome. Come out now, and I'll make sure Miranda goes easy on you. Ethan's heart hammered. The wardrobe they hid behind was massive, ornate, and behind it he could see something. A seam in the wall, a door painted over, almost invisible. He reached for Crane's keycard. The reader beside the hidden door was covered in dust but still functional. He swiped it, praying it wouldn't beep. It didn't. The door clicked open silently. Check behind the furniture, Crane ordered. Ethan and Livia slipped through the hidden door and closed it just as footsteps approached the wardrobe. They stood in complete darkness, barely breathing, as they heard the wardrobe being moved on the other side. Nothing here, Grayson reported. Then where the hell did they go? Crane demanded. Ethan fumbled in the darkness, found a light switch. A bare bulb flickered to life, revealing a small room beyond. What he saw there made his blood run cold. A child's cot, dusty but real. A metal trunk locked. And on the walls, drawings. Dozens of them. 2 boys, identical, playing together, running together, smiling together. In one drawing, both boys were circled. In the next, only one. Above the remaining boy, someone had written in red marker, keep. Above the other, erase. Oh my God, Livia breathed behind him. A floorboard creaked. Not in their room, in the attic beyond. The searchers were still out there, close. Too close. Ethan moved quickly to the trunk. It was locked, but Crane's keycard worked here too. The trunk opened with a click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Inside, clothes, child-sized, medical records with names redacted, and birth certificates, 2 of them printed on the same day, same time, same hospital. Ethan Voss. Noah Voss. Noah, Ethan whispered. On the other side of the door, Crane spoke. They couldn't have just vanished. Search again, every corner, wait. Silence. What is it? Holt asked. This wall, Crane said. His voice was right outside their hidden room. There's a draft coming from behind this wardrobe. Oh God. He'd found the hidden door. Move it, Crane ordered. The sound of heavy furniture being dragged across the floor. In seconds, they'd find the door. Find them. Ethan looked around frantically. The room had one window, boarded up, but maybe he grabbed a piece of furniture and smashed it against the boards. They splintered. Not enough. He hit them again. "He's in there!" Crane shouted. The hidden door flew open, just as Ethan kicked the last board free. Beyond the window was a narrow ledge, and beyond that, a ventilation grate. Mr. Crane stood in the doorway, his face expressionless. "I told Miranda you were a problem. She should have gotten rid of you years ago." Ethan grabbed Livia's arm and dove for the window. Behind them, Crane lunged. They crashed through the remaining boards, landing hard on the ledge outside. Ethan spotted the ventilation grate, the kind used for the old heating system. He kicked it open. "Go!" he shouted at Livia. She dove into the narrow passage without hesitation. Ethan followed, feeling Crane's hand grab his ankle. He kicked back hard, connecting with something solid. Crane grunted. Ethan pulled himself into the vent shaft and crawled. The metal duct was barely wide enough for his shoulders. Behind him, he heard Crane's furious voice echoing. "You can't hide forever, boy." They emerged in a storage room 3 floors down, gasping and covered in dust. Ethan's hands were shaking again, but this time with adrenaline and fury rather than fear. "I have proof," he said, clutching the birth certificates. "I have actual proof Noah exists." Livia looked at him, her expression shifting from concern to something deeper, determination mixed with what looked like guilt. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Ethan, your twin brother Noah never died. Miranda hid him. Crane guards him. And they think you're trying to expose everything." She paused, her voice dropping. "Your brother is alive, and if we don't find him soon, Miranda will make sure neither of you survives. If you're hooked on this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Things are about to get even more intense." 3 days later, Damien Voss returned to Hawthorne Estate. Ethan watched from the servant wing window as his father's convoy pulled up the circular drive. 3 black SUVs, precisely coordinated. Damien emerged from the middle vehicle, his silver hair perfectly styled, his suit crisp despite the long flight from Dubai. Ethan hadn't seen his father in 6 months. Before that, it had been a year. Damien Voss was always traveling, always working, always anywhere but home. When he was at the estate, he barely acknowledged Ethan's existence. Miranda had seen to that over the years, positioning Ethan as unreliable, troubled, not worth his father's time. But now Damien was home early. Something had gone wrong with a business deal, Sophie had whispered. A scandal that required Damien's immediate attention. Ethan saw his chance. If he could talk to his father, show him the birth certificates, explain about Noah. He tried that evening. Waited until dinner was served in the main dining room, then knocked on the door. A servant he barely knew opened it. "I need to speak with my father," Ethan said. The servant looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Voss is dining with Mrs. Voss. Perhaps later. It's important." Miranda appeared behind the servant. She was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful, sharp, cold, perfect. Her smile never reached her eyes. "Ethan," she said warmly, for the servant's benefit. "How thoughtful of you to check in. But your father is exhausted from travel. Perhaps tomorrow?" "This can't wait." Ethan tried to step forward. Miranda's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "Tomorrow," she repeated, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "Unless you'd like Crane to have another conversation with you." The door closed in his face. Ethan returned to his quarters in the servant wing, a converted storage room with a narrow bed and a single window. He found the space ransacked. Clothes scattered, mattress overturned, his few personal belongings destroyed. And there, laid out on his desk, jewelry from Miranda's room. Expensive watches, cash from Damien's study, a frame job, crude but effective. Sure enough, within the hour, Crane appeared with 2 estate security guards. "We received reports of theft," he said flatly. "Mrs. Voss is missing several items." Ethan's protests fell on deaf ears. He was confined to the basement level, reassigned to maintenance duty, his movements restricted. Miranda had moved fast, isolating him before he could reach Damien. That night, locked in the basement, strange things began happening. A door he'd passed 100 times suddenly stood ajar, revealing stairs he'd never noticed. Cold air drifted up from below, carrying with it a sound that made his blood freeze. Singing, faint and off-key, like someone who'd heard music through walls their entire life but never learned real lyrics. Ethan's heart raced. He pulled out his phone for light and descended into a wine cellar he'd never seen before, older, deeper, forgotten. The singing grew louder as he moved toward the back, where a door stood behind dust-covered bottles. He tried Crane's keycard. It beeped red. Denied. But the singing continued, closer now. Human. Definitely human. Footsteps exploded behind him, multiple sets, running fast. "He's down here!" Grayson's voice echoed through the cellar. Ethan bolted through the door into a tunnel beyond, his phone light bouncing wildly off damp stone walls. The passage twisted and turned, the singing growing louder even as he ran. Behind him, flashlight beams cut through the darkness. "Find him!" Holt's voice, closer than it should be. The tunnel branched. Ethan took the left path, his lungs screaming. He could hear Grayson's labored breathing right behind him, closing in. A junction appeared ahead, multiple passages splitting off. Ethan killed his phone light and pressed himself into a narrow alcove, his hand clamped over his mouth to muffle his breathing. Grayson thundered past, so close Ethan could have touched him. Holt followed seconds later. Their footsteps faded into the distance, but the singing didn't fade. It grew clearer, closer. Ethan waited 30 seconds, then emerged from his hiding spot. He followed the sound through the maze of tunnels until he found electrical lights strung along the ceiling like dying Christmas lights. The passage widened into a corridor ending at a heavy metal door. The singing stopped. "Is someone there?" A voice, muffled but young and male. Ethan's breath caught. "Hello? You're real?" The voice sounded desperate, hopeful. "Please be real." "I'm real," Ethan said, trying Crane's keycard again. Still denied. "I'm trying to open the door." "You need the secondary code," a different voice said behind him. Ethan spun. Livia stood there, emerging from a side passage. Her face was bruised, her clothes torn. She'd been in a fight. "I followed you," she said quickly. "Miranda's planning something tonight. I heard her tell Crane to move the asset." "Ethan, I think she means your brother, and I think she's planning to kill you both." The door's lock suddenly beeped. Both of them froze as the door swung open, revealing Mr. Crane flanked by Grayson and Holt. Crane's expression was almost sad. "I told you," he said quietly. "You should have stayed in your place." Grayson lunged. Ethan barely dodged, slamming into the wall. Stars exploded across his vision. Holt came at Livia, who dropped low and swept his legs with practiced efficiency. She'd had training, serious training. But Crane was fast. He grabbed Ethan by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Ethan's vision swam. His fingers clawed at Crane's iron grip, useless. "I've done things for Miranda you can't imagine," Crane said conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather. "Terrible things. Keeping a boy locked in a room for 19 years is nothing compared to some of them. What's 2 more bodies?" A toolbox sailed through the air and crashed into Crane's head. He dropped Ethan, stumbling backward. Livia stood there, breathing hard, another wrench gripped in her hand. "Run!" she shouted. They ran, diving back into the tunnels. Behind them, Crane's roar of rage echoed like thunder. They took turns at random, desperate to lose their pursuers. Ethan's throat burned where Crane had grabbed him. His lungs screamed for air. Finally, they burst into a wider space, an underground room carved from stone, lit by a single bare bulb hanging from a wire. The space was furnished with the basics of survival: a cot, a toilet, a small table, and on the cot, chained to the wall by his ankle, was a boy. He was thin, pale, with dark hair the same shade as Ethan's. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow, but his face, it was Ethan's face. "Noah," Ethan breathed. He rushed forward, kneeling beside the cot. "Noah, wake up. Please, wake up." Noah's eyes fluttered open. They were brown, like Ethan's. They focused slowly, confusion and fear mixing with something else. Hope. "You're real," Noah whispered. His voice was rough from disuse. "I thought I was hallucinating again. I do that sometimes. See things, hear things." "I'm real," Ethan said, fumbling with the chain. It was padlocked to a bolt in the wall. "I'm your brother. I'm getting you out." "Brother?" Noah's eyes widened. "I have a brother?" The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. Noah didn't even know. 19 years in this room, and he'd never been told he had a twin. Livia moved to help with the chain, but suddenly froze. Ethan looked back and saw her staring at something on the room's table. A cell phone. Ringing. Nobody moved. The phone rang 3 times, 4, 5. Then Livia, moving like someone in a dream, picked it up and answered. She listened, said nothing. Her face drained of all color. Finally, she ended the call and turned to face Ethan. Her eyes were full of tears. "Livia?" Ethan said slowly. "Who was that?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." The door behind them opened. Miranda walked in, immaculate in designer clothes, not a hair out of place. Behind her, Crane appeared, blood trickling from where the toolbox had hit him. His smile was terrifying. Miranda looked at Livia. "Excellent work, dear. I knew hiring you was the right choice." She glanced at her watch. "Bring them upstairs. Damien will believe whatever I tell him. He always does." The world tilted beneath Ethan's feet. Livia had been working for Miranda from the start. Every conversation, every moment of trust, every look that had made his heart race. The way she'd bandaged his wounds, the way she'd fought beside him, the way she'd made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone. All of it had been a lie. "No," Ethan said. His voice came out broken. "No, you helped me. I'm sorry," Livia said again. Tears streamed down her face, but they didn't matter. Nothing she said could matter now. "She has my sister. She said if I didn't help her find Noah, she'd kill her. I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," Ethan spat. "Enough talking," Miranda interrupted. She looked at Ethan with undisguised contempt. "You should have stayed invisible, Ethan. You were so good at it. But you had to go digging. You had to be difficult. What did you do to him?" Ethan gestured at Noah, who was struggling to sit up. "He's been chained down here for 19 years? "Not always chained," Miranda said dismissively. "Only when he misbehaved. Crane brought him food, water, books sometimes. More than he deserved, really." "Why?" The question tore from Ethan's throat. "Why do this?" Miranda smiled. "Because, darling, I needed insurance. Damien required an heir, someone to inherit his empire. But he also required control. So I chose you to be the visible heir, the servant, the one I could break and mold into whatever I needed, and I kept Noah as my backup plan." She gestured elegantly at Noah. "If you ever became too troublesome, I could always produce the real son, the one I'd been protecting from his unstable, violent brother all these years." "Father would never believe you," Ethan said. Miranda's laugh was like ice cracking. "Oh, sweet boy, I've been managing what your father believes for nearly 20 years. He'll believe whatever I tell him to believe. He always has." Crane moved forward, pulling out zip ties. "Come on, both of you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Ethan looked at Noah, his twin brother who'd spent his entire life in this stone room. Noah was staring at him with wide eyes, taking in the face that matched his own. "So we're twins?" Noah said. His voice was stronger now, tinged with something dark and bitter. "And she kept us apart our whole lives?" "Yes," Ethan said. Noah's laugh was unexpected, sharp and slightly unhinged. "Well, that's incredibly messed up, even for my already very low expectations of humanity." "Shut up," Crane snapped, grabbing Noah's arm. "Make me," Noah shot back. "What are you going to do, lock me in a room?" "Oh, wait." Despite everything, Ethan felt a flicker of admiration for his brother's spirit. 19 years of captivity, and Noah could still crack jokes. Crane hauled them both to their feet. Ethan struggled, but Crane was too strong. The zip ties bit into his wrists. Beside him, they were securing Noah, who swayed on legs that barely remembered how to stand. "I can't walk," Noah said, in case that wasn't obvious. 19 years of sitting will do that. "Then we'll carry you," Crane said flatly. They were dragged through the tunnels, upstairs Ethan hadn't known existed, through passages that wound through the estate's foundations. Finally, they emerged into a space Ethan recognized, the old furnace room in the sub-basement. The ancient heating system hadn't been used in years, but someone had fired it up. The air shimmered with heat. Miranda stood by the door, checking her phone. "This is how it will work," she explained, as if discussing a dinner menu. "You two unfortunate boys broke into the furnace room while fighting. Ethan in one of his violent episodes, Noah trying to escape. There was an accident, a terrible, tragic accident. She shrugged elegantly. By the time anyone finds you, well, Damien will be devastated naturally, but he'll have me to comfort him. You won't get away with this, Ethan said. I already have, Miranda replied. She looked at Livia, who stood near the wall looking pale and sick. You can go now, dear. Your sister will be released within the hour, as promised. Your part in this is done. Livia didn't move. You said you'd let them go. You said you just wanted to scare them. Miranda's smile was patient, like a teacher with a slow student. And you believed me? How sweet. She turned to Crane. Make sure it looks authentic. I'll be upstairs with my husband, establishing my alibi. She swept out. Crane approached, pulling out a knife. Behind him, Grayson and Holt blocked the only exit. This was it. The end. After everything, Ethan had found his brother only to die with him. But then he remembered Crane's keycard. It was still in his sock. When they'd zip-tied his hands, they'd only checked his pockets. And Crane's taser from the earlier fight had somehow ended up in Ethan's jacket pocket. He'd forgotten it was there until his bound hands brushed against it. As Crane bent down to secure Ethan to a pipe, Ethan spoke. My father will figure it out. Eventually, he'll know you murdered us. Your father is a fool, Crane said flatly. Always has been. Too focused on money to see what's happening in his own home. Maybe, Ethan said, but you missed something. What's that? Ethan twisted, managed to grip the taser, and fired point blank into Crane's chest. The barbs hit home. Crane convulsed and went down. Ethan rolled away, got his bound hands in front of him, and grabbed Crane's dropped knife. He started sawing at the zip ties. Grayson and Holt charged forward, but then Livia moved. She grabbed a heavy pipe from the floor and swung like she was aiming for the outfield. The pipe connected with Holt's knee. He went down screaming. Grayson hesitated for one critical second. Ethan's zip ties snapped free. He tackled Grayson, and they crashed into the wall. Ethan's fist connected with Grayson's jaw once, twice, 3 times. The enforcer slumped, unconscious. Livia was cutting Noah free. Can you move? She asked. Barely, Noah admitted. But I'll manage. He looked at Ethan. You're welcome for the distraction, by the way. What distraction? Ethan panted. When I said that thing about being twins, kept them talking long enough for you to plan. Classic villain mistake. Monologuing. Crane was recovering, already trying to stand. Ethan grabbed the pipe and faced him. Just you and me now, Ethan said. Crane pulled another taser. They circled each other in the sweltering heat. Crane feinted left, then lunged right. Ethan swung the pipe. Crane ducked under it and caught Ethan with a brutal punch to the ribs. Pain exploded through Ethan's side. He staggered, and Crane pressed his advantage, landing blow after blow. Ethan's vision blurred. He was losing. Ethan! Noah's voice cut through the chaos. Duck! Ethan dropped. Something sailed over his head. Grayson's taser, thrown by Noah. It hit Crane square in the face. Not enough to stun him, but enough to make him stagger. Ethan swung the pipe with everything he had left. It connected with Crane's temple. The security chief's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. For a moment, the only sound was Ethan's ragged breathing. Then Noah spoke. Is he dead? No, Livia said, checking Crane's pulse. But he'll be out for a while. Pity, Noah muttered. I would have been okay with dead. Ethan looked at his brother, this stranger who shared his face, who'd survived 19 years of hell, and could still make dark jokes. We need to get you to a hospital. We need to get to your father first, Livia corrected, before Miranda spins this into something else. Why should we trust you? Ethan demanded. The betrayal still burned in his chest. You were working for her. I know, Livia said. Her voice cracked. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. But right now, we need to move. Miranda will realize something's wrong when Crane doesn't report back. They were halfway to the stairs when the door at the top burst open. Damien Voss stood there, his face a mask of confusion and growing horror. Behind him were Sophie and 3 estate staff members, all carrying various makeshift weapons. Broom handles, wrenches, a fire extinguisher. What the hell is going on? Damien demanded. Then he saw Noah saw the identical face. Saw his sons, both of them, standing in a furnace room, bleeding and bound and alive. His face went white. "What, Dad?" Ethan said. It was the first time he'd called Damien that in years. "We need to talk." The next 2 hours were chaos. Police arrived, ambulances, investigators. Crane was arrested on the spot, along with Grayson and Holt. Miranda tried to run but was caught at the estate gates. Staff members who'd been silent for years suddenly found their voices. Sophie testified first, then others. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical records, payments to Crane, the room where Noah had been kept, recovered security footage. Livia confessed everything to police, including how Miranda had blackmailed her by threatening her sister. Noah was rushed to the hospital. 19 years of imprisonment had left him malnourished, his muscles atrophied. But the doctors were optimistic. He would recover. He would walk again. Ethan sat in the waiting room as dawn broke, his father beside him in silence. Too much to say, no idea where to begin. "I failed you," Damien finally said, his voice raw. "Both of you." "Yeah," Ethan said. "You did. I was so focused on building the empire that I didn't see what was happening in my own home." Damien's voice cracked. "I let her convince me you were troubled. I let her isolate you while I chased deals. And Noah..." He couldn't finish. "We can't change the past," Ethan said. "But maybe we can fix the future if you actually stick around this time." A doctor appeared. "He's awake, asking for both of you." They found Noah in a private room, hooked up to IVs. Despite everything, when he saw them, he grinned. "So this is what a hospital looks like," Noah said. "Way better than that stone room, though the food's probably still terrible." Ethan laughed, the sound strange and rusty. "How are you joking right now? It's either laugh or scream, and screaming hurts my throat." Noah looked at Damien. "You're taller than I imagined I used to picture you when I was little. Before I forgot what hope felt like." The words hit Damien like a physical blow. "I don't know what to say to you." "I'm sorry" is usually a good start. "I'm sorry," Damien said, his voice breaking. "I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Both of you." "Good," Noah said, "because I'm going to need a lot of therapy. The expensive kind. Maybe a pool. Actually, make that 2 pools." Despite everything, Damien smiled. "Whatever you need." Over the next days, the full scope of Miranda's crimes emerged. Embezzlement, blackmail, business scandals orchestrated to manipulate Damien's schedule. The media descended like locusts, but Damien's lawyers kept most details private. Livia left the city with her sister for a fresh start. Before she went, she visited one last time Ethan met her in the hospital corridor. "I didn't fake everything," she said quietly. "When I said I cared, that was real." "I know," Ethan said, "but I can't forget what happened. Not yet." "Maybe someday," she offered. "Maybe." After she left, Noah wheeled himself over in his new wheelchair, his physical therapy already showing remarkable progress. "The girl who broke your trust," Noah observed. "It's complicated. Love usually is." Noah's grin turned mischievous. "So which one of us is the evil twin?" Ethan groaned. "Definitely you." "Good," Noah said, "because I think we're going to need an evil twin for what's coming next." 3 days later, Miranda was brought to court for her arraignment. The charges were extensive: kidnapping, false imprisonment, child abuse, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder. The prosecution was seeking maximum sentences on all counts. Ethan, Noah, and Damien sat in the gallery, watching as Miranda was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, but her eyes were still cold, still calculating. The judge read the charges. Miranda's lawyer entered a not guilty plea. The proceedings were routine, bureaucratic. It should have ended there, but as Miranda was being escorted out by marshals, she stopped, turned, looked directly at Damien. "Damien," she called out. Her lawyer tried to pull her away, but she shook him off. "You never even asked the right question." Damien stood. "What are you talking about?" Miranda's smile was razor sharp. "Who paid me to do this? Did you really think I orchestrated everything alone? That I had the resources, the connections, The expertise to falsify hospital records, hack medical databases, maintain a hidden prisoner for 19 years? She laughed. I was just the implement, darling. The weapon someone else wielded. The courtroom went silent, every eye fixed on Miranda. What are you saying? Damien demanded, his voice shaking. I'm saying someone wanted your sons eliminated, someone who has everything to gain from the Voss family's destruction. Miranda's eyes glittered with malice. Someone who's been planning this for decades, since before your sons were born. Who? Ethan shouted, standing beside his father. Miranda leaned forward as much as the marshals would allow. Check your father's safety deposit box at Deutsche Bank, account number 7743-NK. The key is hidden in his study, behind the portrait of your grandfather. Inside the box, you'll find documents dated 23 years ago, an agreement, a partnership that went very, very wrong. What kind of agreement? Damien's face had gone pale as death. The kind that makes powerful enemies. Miranda's smile widened. The Berlin Consortium. Remember them, Damien? Remember what you promised them? What you took from them? Damien stumbled backward as if she'd struck him. Ethan caught his father's arm. Dad, what is she talking about? But Damien couldn't speak. He just stared at Miranda with an expression of absolute horror. They found me 5 years into my marriage to you, Miranda continued, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom. Offered me money, security, protection. All I had to do was make sure the Voss line ended with you. No heirs, no legacy, just you, alone. And when you die, she shrugged. Everything you built falls to them. The contracts you signed ensure it. You're lying, Damien whispered. Am I? Miranda's laugh was genuine, delighted. Then check the box, read the Berlin contracts, and when you realize I'm telling the truth, ask yourself this. If they got to me, who else have they gotten to? Your lawyers? Your board members? Your security team? She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried, How do you know I was the only weapon they aimed at your sons? The marshals pulled her away. She went without resistance, that smile still fixed on her face. The courtroom erupted into chaos, reporters shouting questions, lawyers demanding order, the judge calling for silence. But Ethan couldn't hear any of it. His ears were ringing. His father had collapsed into his seat, his face buried in his hands. Noah sat frozen in his wheelchair, his knuckles white where he gripped the armrests. Dad, Ethan said, kneeling beside Damien. Dad, what is the Berlin Consortium? Damien looked up with eyes full of terror. Something I buried 23 years ago. Something that should have stayed buried. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Something that will kill us all if we're not careful. Noah wheeled closer. Well, he said, his voice shaking but attempting humor. I survived 19 years in a stone room, only to find out there's an evil organization that wants us all dead. That's just perfect. Ethan helped his father stand. Around them, security was clearing the courtroom. But Ethan's mind was racing the Berlin Consortium, an agreement made before he and Noah were born. Powerful enemies who'd spent decades planning the Voss family's destruction. Miranda hadn't been the mastermind, she'd been a puppet, and somewhere out there, the real enemy was watching, waiting. As they left the courthouse, Ethan felt eyes on them. He turned, scanning the crowd of reporters and onlookers. For just a moment, he saw a figure in the back, tall, wearing an expensive suit, with a face partially obscured by shadow but unmistakably focused on them. The figure raised a hand, not a wave, a salute. Military precision. The gesture of someone who'd been watching them for a very long time and wanted them to know it. Then the figure melted back into the crowd, disappearing like smoke. Noah noticed too. Did you see that? Yeah, Ethan said, his blood running cold. Should we be worried? Definitely. They climbed into the waiting car, Damien silent and shaking between his sons. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Ethan's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice, clearly using a modulator, filled his ear. Tell your father that the Berlin Consortium sends its regards. We've been watching the Voss family for 23 years. Miranda was phase 1, a test of your father's awareness. You both passed by surviving, which makes this more interesting. A pause. The contracts your father signed were written in blood, Literally, and blood contracts can never be broken, only transferred. Your father owes us his empire, his legacy, his sons. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. Who are you? We're the people who've been pulling strings in your family since before you were born. We're the reason your mother died in childbirth. Did you really think that was natural? The voice became almost amused. We're patient, we're thorough, and we always collect what we're owed. You're insane, Ethan said. We're business people. There's a difference. The voice hardened. Tell your father to check the box, read the Berlin documents, learn what he agreed to, and then understand that everything, the hidden twin, the years of isolation, Miranda's plan, was just us keeping our investment alive until the time was right. What do you want? We want what we've always wanted. The Voss empire, your father's fortune, and to make sure no Voss heir ever challenges our claim. A beat of silence. We'll be in touch. Oh, and Ethan? We know about the key card you're still carrying, the birth certificates, the evidence you think proves everything. We know because we gave Miranda the tools to create that evidence. We control the narrative we always have. The line went dead. Ethan looked at Noah, who'd heard the whole thing through the car's Bluetooth. His brother's face was pale, but his jaw was set with determination. Damien was staring straight ahead, his hands trembling in his lap. They killed your mother, he whispered. All these years I thought it was complications, but they killed her because she found out about the contracts, about what I'd agreed to. What did you agree to? Noah asked quietly. Damien's voice broke. Everything. I gave them everything. I was young, desperate, trying to save the company after your grandfather died. They offered me capital, connections, protection. All I had to do was sign documents that made them silent partners, 50-year contracts. When I tried to back out 5 years later, they showed me the fine print. He looked at his sons with devastated eyes. The contracts specified that if I had heirs, those heirs would inherit not just my fortune, but my debts to the consortium. You were born into servitude, both of you, and I was too proud, too stupid, to tell anyone. So they've been controlling everything, Ethan said. Miranda, Crane, all of it. They wanted you separated, Damien continued. One son visible, one hidden. That way, if one of you died, they'd still have an heir to claim. If both died, the empire fell to them directly. They've been playing a long game. And I... His voice broke completely. I couldn't stop them. Every time I tried, they threatened you, threatened to make you disappear. So I stayed away. I thought if I wasn't close to you, they couldn't use my love for you as leverage. The car pulled up to the hospital where Noah was still technically a patient. As they got out, Ethan caught sight of the same figure from the courthouse, or someone wearing the same expensive suit, standing across the street watching. Always watching. The figure didn't move, didn't acknowledge them, just stood there, a silent reminder that the consortium was everywhere. Noah followed Ethan's gaze. So we have an international criminal organization that's been controlling our lives since before we were born. They killed our mother, they own our father's company, and they're not going to stop until they have everything. That about covers it, Ethan said. Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at his brother, his twin, the person he'd been separated from his entire life. So which one of us is the evil twin? Ethan managed a weak smile, despite the terror coursing through him. Definitely you. Good, Noah said, wheeling toward the hospital entrance. Because I think we're going to need an evil twin for what's coming next. As they entered the building, Ethan glanced back one more time. The figure in the suit was gone, but in his place, a black SUV with tinted windows idled at the curb. On the rear window, barely visible, was a symbol, a geometric design that looked like 3 interlocking triangles, forming a larger triangle, the mark of the Berlin Consortium. They were being hunted by an enemy they didn't understand, bound by contracts signed before they were born. Trapped in a web that had been spinning for more than 2 decades, Miranda had been just one thread. Crane, another. But the spider at the center was still hidden, still watching, still waiting to strike. Ethan looked at his brother, at his father, at the family that had been torn apart and was only beginning to heal. They'd survived Miranda. They'd survived Crane. They'd found each other against impossible odds, but the real battle was just beginning. And somewhere, in a boardroom in Berlin or London or New York, the members of the consortium were watching the Voss family on monitors, making plans, moving pieces on a board that Ethan was only beginning to understand. The game had changed, but the Voss family was still in play. For now. If you enjoyed this story and want to know what happens when the Voss family faces the Berlin Consortium, make sure to smash that like button, drop a comment with your theories about who's really behind this organization and what the blood contracts contain, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this saga. Will Ethan and Noah be able to break free from the consortium's control? What secrets are hidden in those Berlin documents, and who else in their lives might be working for the enemy? Let us know your theories in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.